The GEEK Files, 2026, January 20th, Burnley. So there's a whole bunch of reserves, and they're even in the 80s, they were bigger than people thought, like Big Trout Lake and Angling Lake and Wiggama and Sandy Lake, Grassy Narrows. A lot of them had airstrips. But it was in the summer, things get, small items get delivered on floats, and in the winter, things get delivered on skis, on runways on the ice. But during break up and freeze up, they don't get supplied because they'll come in on the runway if they had a runway. But that's more expensive because that's usually the bigger aircraft. In the winter, when after freeze up, they make a big list of supplies that the community needs, fuel and food, canned food, etc. Because perishables come in if they do by aircraft. And then cat trains come up on winter roads. So cat bulldozers pull these sledges full of food, and it's very economical to do that. But very often they miscalculate the town's fuel needs for heating and lighting, and the tanks need a top up. And so that comes in fuel bladders inside otters usually, unless it's a big haul and they fly it in on DC-3 with the fuel tanks inside the DC-3. So angling, Big Trout Lake needed fuel. So a slight top up. So Central Air got the contract, and a truck showed up. Wiggama Lake, Windigo Lake. A bladder got thrown in one of the otters, and one of the other mechanic at Windigo Lake stayed there to help load up the aircraft. And then I was flown into Big Trout Lake, and I would help pump it off. So I'm there with I have a bag full of sort of emergency overnight stuff, a light sleeping bag with a bottle of Alcool down the center, because you wind up staring at the nurse's station and it's a dry reserve, as well as some other, change of clothes, blah, blah, blah. And so I'm sitting there and I'm watching these old stinking outboard motors going up and down the lake, just puking two-stroke fuel and oil into the lake, leaving a big streak. But we have to use a dry brake. So a dry brake is a connection where when you disconnect it, no fuel spills. So I'm sitting on the dock unloading the otter. Tony's flying the aircraft. And someone from the band comes down. I do the dry brake. A drop of diesel drops out through the slats in the dock, because it's just, a slat board dock, hits the water, and he freaks. And I had to go find a 5-gallon bucket to catch the one drop of diesel fuel I was leaking. And as all of these outboard two-strokes are going up and down, just blue plumes coming out their exhaust and just leaving oil streaks behind them. Oh, yeah. And then the school principal, a white guy, comes down and starts yelling at me about why am I, who gave me authority because we're loading into the school's fuel tank. Who told me to do this, blah, blah, blah. And I just look at him and say, go talk to the band, man. I just do what the band says. And he stomps off. And basically, I spend all day there doing this. We do the load. Every time Tony does a load, he has to get paperwork signed for the load, because these guys, the pilots get paid by the pound, basically. Pound in flight time. I'm not sure really how it works, but it's pound in flight time. And the day ends. We pack up everything. We're going back to Wendigo Lake. Wendigo means bad spirit. Yeah, so I'm stationed at a lake called Bad Spirit. And we're going back. And this otter hat was a military vert otter, and it had what's known as a throwover column. So the column comes up between the two pilot seats and then Y's off to one side. You pull a pin and you can throw the whole column over to the co-pilot. So it's not dual column, but you can throw it over. There's two sets of rudder pedals, and then you just pull this pin and throw it over. And so Tony's trying to fly and do his paperwork, and he looks at me and says, "Can you fly?" And I said, "Yeah." And so he pulls the pin and throws the yoke over to me. Now, the hardest thing to do in an aircraft is fly straight, flat, level, no bumps, nothing. So I'm doing my best to keep the aircraft on heading, flat, level, no ups, no down. And Tony's looking down, doing his paperwork. The window's open, it's hot. Windows are down. And he looks at me and says, "You can make some turns." I look at him and go, "Okay." So I start doing 1 minute S's. So you do, there's something called a 1 minute turn where you bank the aircraft and you hold, there's a device that tells you if you're in a turn, if you're slipping, and you hold the ball, this ball is in this rotating thing, and you hold the ball in the center of that, so you're pulling the right amount of G's for the bank that you're doing. So I'm doing these banks, doing these 1 minute turns, and all of a sudden Tony looks up and just like eases his hands and in one of these turns, and the breeze comes through my window, underneath all of his paperwork, and then right out his window, and all of his daily checks are gone for the day. So he doesn't know how much he's done where, and all of the things signed are gone. Yeah. And the look on Tony's face was just like, there goes my pay for the day. So, yeah, I don't know how he ever resolved that. And then so I went back flying straight and level. Yeah. So making appropriate decisions. You don't make any money, obviously, but you got good stories.